Welcome to Entrepreneur in France, or welcome back if you've been here before. Today's video is the first in a series all about micro enterprises. What I'm going to try and do is answer 10 of the most common questions in 10 minutes, which will be a challenge. I'm going to put the stopwatch on and let's go.
Is it micro or auto? It's micro. There used to be two separate systems, then they merged into one, and it's officially known as a micro. And those of us who still keep saying auto from time to time, we need to just learn how to let it go. Can anyone be a micro? Well, no, they can't. First of all, you have to be 18 or over. You must have the right to work, so check your visa carefully. You must not have an existing entreprise individuelle. A micro is an entreprise individuelle, and you can't have more than one at a time. And there are also certain activities that don't fit in with this system. We don't really have time to look at those in detail, but these are the categories. And if you think that you might fall into one of these, then you can always check on Google. Do I need an accountant? Help, I went over the limit. Okay, that's not a question, but it's because most people don't normally ask it. Normally they say it like this. As you know, with micros, you have a maximum turnover that you must respect. And this depends on what kind of activity you have. Now, if you happen to go over it, do not panic because you must go over it for 2 consecutive years before you lose your status as a micro. And concretely, what that means, if you are under the limit in 2022, but you go over it in 2023, then in 2024 you can still be a micro. But if you go over the limit in 2022 and in 2023, then in 2024 you cannot be a micro anymore. And important to know is that if, for example, 2022 is your first year of activity, then there'll be a pro rata done for that year. So imagine you start on the 1st of July, you've still got 6 months to go. If you're a commercial activity, then that means you're allowed to go up to half of the threshold, so 94,350 euros. And if you stay under that, then that's fine. But if you go over that in those 6 months and again in 2023, then in 2024 you lose your status. What about VAT? Okay, so as a micro, normally you do not declare VAT, so you can't reclaim it on your purchases, but you don't charge it to your clients. And this system is called the franchise en base. And when you are invoicing clients in France, then this is what you must put on all of your invoices. If you think it would be particularly advantageous for you to declare VAT, say you have a lot of purchases, and you think it would be worth it, then you need to talk to the tax office about that. You can do it. You can opt out of this system and move to a system where you're still a micro, but you declare VAT. And the only other way that you'll be declaring VAT is if you go over the VAT threshold. So again, these are different depending on your activity, and they work similarly to the turnover threshold. So if you go over this first figure for 2 consecutive years, then the following year, from the 1st of January, you need to start declaring VAT. If you at any point go over this second figure, then you must start to declare VAT from the first of that month. So if you can see that you're going to go over during a particular month, then don't wait until the last euro. Anticipate and put VAT on all of your invoices from the beginning of that month. Can I deduct expenses? Well, in a word, no, you can't deduct expenses. But what you will get is an abattement, which is like an allowance. Again, they're different depending on your activity. And this is something that the tax office will apply to your turnover, and they will estimate that this is what your expenses are. How does that work? If you're a commercial activity and you have a turnover of 100,000 euros, then you'll declare that on your tax return, but the tax office will say to be able to earn these 100,000 euros, it cost you 71,000 euros. So we're actually going to tax you on the 29,000 remaining. So at this point, you might say, well, hold on, I thought that with the micro, I was paying my income tax as I went along. Is that not the system of the VFL? Versement forfaitaire libératoire, and again, different rates for different activities, but this is the system where you pay as you go along. You'll declare your turnover every month or every 3 months, depending on what you've chosen, and you will be charged this rate of income tax on your turnover. Now, is it a good idea? Should you do it? As usual, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. But what I would say is if you have no or low tax liability, let's say that you don't have any big income coming into the house and you have a bunch of kids at home, well, then this isn't worth doing because you have no tax liability. And why would you choose to pay tax when normally the tax office would not calculate that you owe any tax? So don't choose this option. But if you have a higher tax liability, let's imagine you're a slightly older couple and your children have left home and one or other of you earns already quite a decent income, well, then this would be very advantageous for you because the new income from your micro could just push you up into a higher tax bracket. So if you can get away with paying that lower rate of tax, then that works out really well for you. But you should know there's a threshold, and after a certain amount of income in the household, then they don't let you do it anymore because then that just blatantly ripping off the tax office and they don't let you do that. Can I get the ACRE? Okay, so the ACRE is the aide for the création ou reprise d'entreprise. And this is something that people get very excited about. The main feature of the ACRE is at the beginning of your activity, it greatly reduces or sometimes completely nullifies the amount that you have to pay in social charges, which sounds great, but you should know that you need to be young, like under 26 or 29 if you have a registered handicap. If you are unemployed, if you're signed on at Pôle emploi, if you are receiving RSA, then you may qualify, or if you set up business in a particularly defavorized area. Is that even a word in English? Also, you cannot have had the ACRE within the last 3 years. And if you can tick these boxes, or at least one of those boxes, then you will maybe qualify. But a lot of people are not eligible. So you just need to get your head around the idea that you will have social charges to pay. So how much in social charges? That is a very important question. Again, based on turnover, and again, the rates are different depending on your activities. How does it work out? Well, like this, if you had 100 or 50 respectively, then this is how much you would pay in social charges. And I want to show you an example because it's important that you're very clear about this. So here we are comparing 3 different businesses. We've got A, B, and C. They are all commercial and they all have the same turnover of 100,000 euros. However, business A, he really did spend the 71,000 euros that the tax office allocated for his expenses, which means that this is his profit. Now, his social charges are going to be based on his turnover. So once those have come out of his profit, this is what he's left with in his pocket. Business B had the same turnover, but he did not manage his expenses very well. He blew the budget and he spent 75,000, which means that he has a lower real profit, but his social charges stay the same because they're based on his turnover. So in reality, he has far less money in his pocket. And business C, He did really well. He kept his expenses down to 65,000, which makes his real profit higher. And because his social charges do not change, then he has this left in his pocket. So this guy can do the mummy dance. All right, so I've paid my social charges.
What do we
Does
mean when we
that give
say
me
social cover? We're
social
talking
cover?
about contributing to pensions and talking about sick pay. Do you have that covered? The answer is not necessarily. I even did that in 10 minutes. It's a very important consideration. We're going to talk about it in my next video, which is going to be, is the micro for me? Don't forget to subscribe, and then you won't miss it next week.